India Today is the first news channel to have been able to confirm that the mega Team Modi reshuffle will take place tomorrow in the evening between 5:30 and 6. Long before any other channel could authoritatively break the time of the reshuffle, India Today was able to confirm that the reshuffle will happen tomorrow. The Rashtrapati Bhavan has set the 5:30 to 6 p.m. window as the time when this reshuffle will take place. Several of the probables have been coming into Delhi meeting BJP President JP Nadda. Sources have told India Today that at least 20 new faces will be inducted tomorrow. Here's what we know so far about this much anticipated Modi government reshuffle.
Nail-biting suspense over Team Modi's mega rejig gets bigger. Modi cabinet's reshuffle likely on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. But only 3 men know who's in and who's out, as the mantri hopefuls wait in anxious silence.
ना इसमें मैं तय करने वाला हूं, ना आपको इन्फॉर्म करने वाला हूं. जो उचित लोग हैं वही इस पे आपको कोई जानकारी दे पाएंगे.
Several senior BJP leaders rushed to Delhi, triggering more speculation. Jyotiraditya Scindia, who successfully pulled off a coup against Kamal Nath in Madhya Pradesh last year, has dashed to the capital.
3 दिवस के दौरे को समाप्त करके मैं अभी दिल्ली पहुंचा. कोई खबर होगी तो मैं आप लोगों को
Former Assam Chief Minister Sarbananda Sonowal, Apna Dal leader Anupriya Patel and Rajya Sabha MP Narayan Rane are in the national capital too to meet BJP Chief JP Nadda.
देखो विशेष कुछ होगा तो जरूर बताएंगे. आपको कोई छुपा सकते हैं क्या?
Sources have told India Today over 20 new faces will be inducted into the cabinet, while several sitting mantris may be dropped. The first Modi 2.0 cabinet rejig might include fresh faces from Bengal, Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh. With the UP elections less than a year away, alliance partners Apna Dal and Nishat Party might be accommodated in the cabinet. BJP ally JDU has demanded 4 ministerial berths in Team Modi. Senior JDU leader RCP Singh has rushed to Delhi to hold further discussions.
बातचीत करके जो कुछ भी होना है उसी के हिसाब से होगा. माननीय आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी चाहेंगे उसी के हिसाब से जो भी होना होगा होगा.
On the other hand, LJP faction headed by Chirag Paswan's estranged uncle might also be accommodated. The Modi cabinet reshuffle might also ease the burden off shoulders of ministers who are handling multiple portfolios like Hardeep Puri, Narendra Singh Tomar, Ravi Shankar Prasad and Prakash Javadekar.
The much-anticipated cabinet reshuffle is now just around the corner. Keeping in mind upcoming state elections, the centre is expected to balance out both regional and caste equations in this latest rejig. It is also being seen as a mid-term course correction for the central government, whose handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and some aspects of its fallout has faced some amount of criticism. With camera person Ashok Bhanot, Polami Saha in Delhi for India Today.
Earlier this evening, I was privy to a high-level briefing by senior authorities in the Modi government, laying out the philosophical framework under which this reshuffle is being carried out and what we've learned. And I want to take you through some of the key aspects of what you'll see tomorrow. One is to infuse fresh blood, younger faces, bring in more technocrats. A lot of emphasis being laid on the educational qualifications of some of the new people being brought in as ministers. I'm told that there are people who are MBAs, PhDs, postgraduates. The government seeking to convey the message that it's pro-poor, pro-Dalits, pro-Adivasis. 25 OBC faces expected after this reshuffle has been concluded. Special focus on poll-bound Uttar Pradesh, where an effort is being made to ensure that all key communities and regions are taken care of. Because elections happening in Uttar Pradesh early next year, the BJP wants to ensure that no one feels that they've been left out, and therefore a lot of emphasis also on Dalit representation, a special message being sent to the SC communities. Key ex-chief ministers being brought in, a lot of emphasis on people with strong administrative experience in the states. I'm told that the number of women in the cabinet is likely to go up as well. And for more on this information, I want to go across to our crack team of pundits joining us for a sense of the message the Modi government is trying to send, the new look of the Union Cabinet. I'm joined on this broadcast by our National Affairs editor, Rahul Kanwal, senior business journalist, Siddharth Zarabi, Shankar Iyer, author and economist, Smita Prakash, edits ANI. And I want to go across first to Himanshu Mishra from our National Political Bureau, who broke the story first and foremost that the reshuffle will take place between 5:30 and 6 p.m. at the Rashtrapati Bhavan tomorrow. So congratulations on that big news break, Himanshu. Give our viewers a sense of what they should expect. You've been speaking to several people across the government. What are the specifics people should look out for when this reshuffle happens tomorrow? Himanshu.
राहुल, मैं आपको बता दूं, कल 5:30 से जो है राष्ट्रपति भवन के अंदर जो है वो कैबिनेट विस्तार का कार्यक्रम जो है वो शुरू हो जाएगा और उसके बाद लगातार जो है मंत्री ओथ लेंगे, और जिसमें सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि 6 कैबिनेट मंत्री नए इंडक्ट किए जाएंगे इस कैबिनेट के अंदर। लेकिन देखना ये होगा कि किन मंत्रियों को जो है वो ड्रॉप किया जाएगा। लेकिन इतना ज़रूर है कि सभी मंत्रियों के कामकाज की जो रिव्यू है वो खुद प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने की है, और उसके बाद ये तय किया है कि किस मंत्री को बाहर किया जाएगा, किसको जो है मंत्रिमंडल में शामिल किया जाएगा। लेकिन इतना ज़रूर है, जो 5 राज्यों के चुनाव हैं उनके ऊपर फोकस होगा, साथ ही साथ हिमाचल और गुजरात के ऊपर फोकस किया जाएगा। उड़ीसा, महाराष्ट्र, बंगाल ये राज्य भी हैं। बिहार में उनके 2 अलायंस पार्टनर हैं, उनके एमपीज़ को जो है मंत्रिमंडल में शामिल किया जाएगा। जेडीयू की तरफ से ये कहा गया है कि वो 4 मंत्री पद चाहते हैं अपनी पार्टी के लिए, क्योंकि उनके 16 एमपीज़ हैं और बिहार में 17 एमपीज़ अगर बीजेपी के हैं और वहाँ से 5 मंत्री हैं, तो ऐसे में उनका जो इक्वेशन बैठता है वो 4 मिनिस्टर्स का होता है। तो देखना ये है कि 20 से 22 नए मंत्रियों को जगह मिल सकती है। लेकिन बड़ी बात ये होगी कौन से ऐसे मंत्री होंगे जिनकी परफॉर्मेंस का ऑडिट करने के बाद प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी उनको कैबिनेट से छुट्टी करते हैं। क्योंकि आज थावर चंद गहलोत जो बहुत ही वरिष्ठ मंत्री थे, राज्यसभा में नेता सदन थे, उनको जो है कर्नाटक का गवर्नर बना दिया गया। तो इससे ये साफ हो गया है कि इस कैबिनेट के अंदर टैलेंट और यूथ और एक्सपीरियंस को काउंट करके ही नए लोगों को इंडक्ट किया जाएगा।
Thanks, Himanshu. We'll come back to you later. Rahul Kanwal, in the briefing I was told that a lot of focus on bringing in technocrats. We don't have specific information on the names, but what are you picking up about who are these technocrats when the government says we're bringing in MBAs, PhDs? What are the kind of names that people should possibly be watching out for?
No, there is absolutely no clarity on specifically who these technocrats are. There are some names in terms people with domain expertise who are already into politics, which are doing the rounds. Say, for example, Dr. Preetam Munde. She's the daughter of Gopinath Munde. She's a medical practitioner. She's a trained doctor. She's likely brought in, and there was even a buzz that she could get into the health ministry as a minister of state. Then there is Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, who is an ex-IAS officer. He was part of the Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee's office in 2004. He's likely to be brought in. Now, these are the few names. Now, few expectations could well be that, say, for example, the health ministry, it's been doing the rounds for a very long time, that somebody who is directly involved in the health field could be brought in. But will the Prime Minister take a chance like that ahead of a parliament session where not only your capability to give a better judgment on medical preparedness is not the only thing, perhaps your political acumen, how to tackle the opposition is also a requisite. Beyond that, if you look at it, one can also see that the kind of rejig which is likely to happen, say Hardeep Puri, for example, 2 sources are very confidently saying that Hardeep Puri's tenure as a Minister of State in Commerce and also his past experience dealing with the WTO negotiations at one time could actually mean that he could get the commerce portfolio. But there is absolutely no confirmation, so one doesn't stick the neck out. But there is going to be a huge political footprint of this exercise. One thing is very clear, that seeing the challenge that the government knew its image is dented because of the second surge and the last few months, and there are few challenges in future in terms of 5 elections which may impact the 2024 elections, there is a huge political messaging that Rahul, almost every induction or exclusion seems to be sending out a political message of a compulsion or preparing for a challenge.
Siddharth Zarabi, what are you picking about what's likely to happen? A lot of focus on the economic ministries trying to bring the economy back on track after this pandemic or in the midst of this pandemic. A huge challenge for the Modi government. What are you picking up about the specifics and about the broad framework under which this reshuffle is taking place?
Rahul, I'm going to stick my neck out, and I will be very, very surprised if there would be a change in the finance ministry. I believe the finance ministry's task and recent decisions and announcements, the Atmanirbhar package, is something that has been very, very closely sort of framed and finalized with the active intervention of the Prime Minister's office. So it's not something that I'm expecting, but politics is at a level apart. The second quick point that I want to make, remember the Civil Aviation Ministry, and because Rahul spoke about the Ministry of Civil Aviation, Hardeep Puri, I want to bring up this point about Air India. Remember, Air India's disinvestment is something which is very important. It has sanctioned at the highest level. Couldn't happen due to the pandemic. Now you have a second round. You know what is happening to crude oil prices. I think there is significant expectation on Mr. Puri to have delivered on that front. So if there's a change there, do bear in mind that as far as Civil Aviation Ministry is concerned, the biggest priority is somehow to get the albatross called Air India in terms of the financial burden off the neck of Bharat Sarkar, because a huge chunk of that money has to be diverted or should be diverted to social welfare programs. The third major priority in economic terms, and again this has come up, is the emerging global trade scenario. You have a new administration in the United States. That administration is perhaps not going to look at India as the previous Trump administration did. We already see certain signs of difference. Someone who can give full-time attention and is versed with diplomacy, because trade, if it has to pick up, will need India to get back into the export markets.
So Smita Prakash, what are you and the team at ANI picking up about what's most likely to happen? Who are the ministers you think the Prime Minister is happy with, and who are those who are not faring well at this moment in the Prime Minister's books? Do you know at all?
Well, I think, Rahul, you and I have covered this government closely for quite some time to know that they keep their cards very close to the chest. So the names will be revealed just tomorrow. And they take pride in that, mind you. They keep saying that we are not the UPA. आप लोगों को तभी पता लगेगा जब सबको पता लगेगा. So I think as far as the names are concerned, the names are not out, but I kind of found it very interesting what Rahul Srivastava was also saying about these technocrats who are going to find their way, and you also reported it, that they are going to be there in this cabinet. For long this government has borne the criticism that it lacks intellectual heft, and that there is lack of talent, so I think people who are, and the fact is that there are people who are they're not bereft of administrative experience, and they are sitting on the bench. There's Jyotiraditya Scindia, Sarbanda Sonowal, Sushil Modi, Bejayan Panda. There are others in the wings also. So as per rumors, they will find their way into this cabinet. And as far as the economy is concerned, which Siddharth was pointing out, not just Air India, not just WTO, what is absolutely necessary is job creation. This government is halfway through its second term, and I think Modi knows that bringing the economy on track is something which is very important, and that's not necessary that you need to shift the finance minister. What is necessary is to bring these super talented people, which is like the Singapore model, bring in technocrats who have domain experience, and they will bring the economy on the track because they know how to do it. So but then you can't take out real politics out. Elections have to be won, Punjab, Gujarat. So there's talk of those members, caste representation, all that is going to be there, but they are tight-lipped about names.
Rajdeep, you want to stick your neck out and tell us what you're picking up about what's happening tomorrow?
Rahul Kanwal, I told you this a couple of days ago. With Modi, you must be very careful. The worst thing you can do is make predictions. You will have egg on your face. We talk of technocrats also today. Let's be also honest, this government's track record with technocrats not great.
Why not?
Many of them eventually decided, like Arvind Panik, we are a good example. You see, for technocrats to work with bureaucrats, not always easy. Very easy to say intellectual heft, technocrats will fix the system. The history of this country, with a few major exceptions, and remember Manmohan Singh was not a technocrat. He had worked within the system. He had spent 25 years in government before he became the finance minister, or 2 decades in government before he became finance minister. So even if you are bringing in people, like there's this talk always, and it's been in the past also, of KV Kamath. You know, do you bring someone like KV Kamath? Will he have the kind of heft that he has a network across business, and this government needs to reach out to various
no, but when they say people with MBAs, PhDs, postgraduates, technocrats,
they don't necessarily make better ministers. They don't necessarily make better ministers. But
this is unfair. You don't like the current lot of ministers. When you are being brought in, you say you don't necessarily make good
Now, let's
ministers.
say you had someone like Jayant Sinha. Jayant Sinha himself comes with a background of investment banking, becomes a minister, didn't survive the second, wasn't in Modi 2.0. Now, why not? I mean, are you telling me that Jayant Sinha does not have the intellectual heft? He's a politician and has the experience of being an investment banker, right? Didn't survive for too long. Suresh Prabhu, politician and also been a banker, didn't enter Modi 2.0. So I'm saying it isn't as if one can say that technocrats or those who had a sort of managerial financial background necessarily make good ministers. I think the key is the economy. Let's be clear, Mr. Modi's biggest challenge in the next 2.5 years is to get this economy right. And at the moment, I think he's done very well on infrastructure ministries, but on ministries where you're going to have to manage the economy and get it kick-started again and inspire confidence in India, I think he needs key people.
Shankar,
so it would be nice to have 2 or 3 figures who will inspire that confidence. And maybe Mr. Modi, hopefully, is willing to take that risk this time.
Do you buy this argument that the signaling on the economic ministries is what will determine how seriously people take the government's intent? One is the political messaging, Uttar Pradesh, caste communities, OBCs, Dalits. The other is the messaging on what's the government's plan and who are the personnel who can kickstart this economy. Shankar.
You know, there's a lot of talk about the know-who factor. Who is in, who is out, what is the qualification of the people who are in and out. There's not enough, on the know what and the know how. And what exactly is the problem that is being solved by the cabinet reshuffle? That is the question that needs to be answered. I don't buy the fact that lateral entrants are superior or that, domain expertise makes you a better minister. We've had PhDs as education ministers and we've had doctors as health ministers, and the pandemic has shown that there are several people with feet of clay in the system. The issue is, what is the problem that you want to solve? So here's the first question, privatization. What's happening? This government needs money. If you want to fix the economy, you need to privatize or you monetize the assets. Can you do it without a minister for privatization? Second point, health sector. What is happening to, in 2017, you announced 1.5 lakh community health centers, wellness centers and stuff. How many of them have been built? Can they bring in a person who will make that happen? Can you bring in a minister who can get at least the BJP ruled states to implement the farm produce cooperative thing? Devendra Fadnavis, as of today or tomorrow, might be free. Why not make him the coordinator for the implementing the farm laws? Why not create farm produce cooperatives? The pandemic has changed the way governments work. What about e-governance? Why not bring in a person for e-governance? The regular laws that govern labor, capital and factors of productivity need to be changed after the pandemic. How do you deal with old laws? Those are the questions that need to be asked. You guys know cricket, so let me finish this by saying that you can't set the field for a left-hand batsman and then bowl on the wrong side of the wicket. I think you have to figure out what is the problem that you want to solve and how you're going to solve it.
No, so you're calling
it finally rests at the Prime Minister's choice of what he wants to address. Yes, the economy is important. health will make the economy work.
You're asking for a new way of thinking. Rajdeep, is that at all possible? Because the flip side to that is if you change too many things right ahead of the parliament session, the opposition picks up its bazooka and says, this is an acknowledgement of defeat. This is an acknowledgement that you wasted 2.5 years, that you didn't know what you were doing so far. Therefore, you've been forced to course correct in such a big way. So it's a tricky equation for the Prime Minister to balance.
It is such a powerful government, Rahul. I don't think Prime Minister Modi has to worry about what the opposition says in Parliament. He simply has to do, and I think Shankar is absolutely right.
But think of it in the context of a bureau of reporters. If you change half the reporters one day, it means that they were sleeping on the job and not getting the job done properly.
No, I don't think you have to change half the people, but you certainly have to ensure that in critical ministries that will define your idea of New India, of environment, health, the economic ministries, to my mind, are going to be critical to the future of this country. You need people who will be adept at issues of global warming. You need people who will be adept at raising the quality of health infrastructure in this country. You need people who will be adept at managing the economy in a tech-driven world. Now, this doesn't mean that you need specialists. I made this point earlier. It's not as if technocrats necessarily make great ministers, but you will need people who would energize this government. I think this government, this course correction that the Prime Minister is going through is to energize this government. After 7 years in power, a certain element of sloth can set in at times, even though you claim to be in mission mode. And I think COVID 2.0 in particular has been a wake-up call in that sense. And now the challenge is, how are you going to, in the next 2.5 years, reach out to the people with your vision of New India? Forget the election ministries, the ones from UP, Maharashtra, Bengal, those are just accommodating people. I would like to believe that with such a powerful Prime Minister, with such a powerful mandate, this is an opportunity to change the way you think. So he's right, Shankar, about a ministry of disinvestment. I would say a ministry that focuses on global warming, a ministry that focuses on health facilities, maybe even break it up and focus specifically on issues that are critical to improving the quality of health in this country. I think that is what Mr. Modi should be doing, like he did with Swachh Bharat. It changed people. There was a Nirmal Bharat against Congress. Mr. Modi took it to another level. Do it now. If you don't do it when you're such a powerful Prime Minister, you don't have to worry about the opposition. You've got to worry about your legacy. What is your legacy going to be in the next couple of years? And that will only be shaped if you're willing to have a vision for a new India with new ministries. You keep talking, Rahul, of less government, more governance. Have we really got it? No. We haven't got it. So it's time to focus on governance and not just big bang programs and schemes.
I spoke to one of the senior most ministers in this government, one of the key decision makers, and I asked him, ye chota reshuffle hai ya bada package? And he said, ye bada hoga, which also means, Siddharth, that the government is signaling in that sense its intent, that it is an acknowledgement of the fact that not just are there gaps because of allies leaving and some unfortunate deaths, but also the fact that this is an opportunity as a mid-course opportunity to try and re-energize Modi 2.0. This is the first reshuffle of this government. In Modi 1.0, there were 3 reshuffles. Therefore, do you see this as a mid-course correction of sorts?
Well, I would say it's actually supplementation of the agenda that is the key to electoral victory and performance. I said it last on your show. I repeat that. What really is the priority of the government is the 4 or 5 programs that are delivered at the grassroots, the drinking water supply program, all the welfare measures, and I'm not talking about the emergency COVID response. I just want to bring in one point about technocrats and the point that Rajdeep makes about the strength of the mandate that this present government also has. All of you would recall the health secretary's famous remark about the vaccines being needed by, are to be given to only those who need it and not those who want it. Remember, I think that goes down in the annals, in my books at least, as a statement which should have never been made. The secretary said it, the minister didn't. I think we also need to step back a little when it comes to some of the crucial technical, economic, commercial ministries and understand that the minister is not the only player when it comes to executive decision making. I think many of the bureaucrats are substantially strong people. Look at the National Highway Authority of India. If memory serves me right, I think the 6th chairman change has happened in 8 years of Modi 1 and Modi 2. What does that tell you about the stability of the NHAI program? Minister Gadkari actually praised the officer. He was sent to Uttarakhand because I imagine political necessities are more. So I'm going to step back and say many of the adjustments, recalibrations, expansion, whatever you term, is essentially going to be the politics of this government and its drive towards social welfare becoming visible. This is not a government where any company or corporates can fix or decide on ministries.
Smita, does the Prime Minister run the risk of coming in for flack from the opposition if too many changes are made, because the opposition will pounce in the monsoon session and before to say, you know, you've had to change a large part of your team. This is proof that you also realized that your team wasn't up to the task.
Well, I think it doesn't really matter to Mr. Modi what the opposition will say in the monsoon session. He's pretty sure about what he wants and from his team. That's been what we have seen in the past 7 years of this government. The last cabinet reshuffle was in 2017. So if he was really moved by what the opposition was saying, he would have probably done the reshuffle last year. But that didn't happen. There's a lot of talk, you know, that ministers have very limited freedom in exercising their powers because the PMO watches over their shoulders. The fact is that administratively, the ministries have their job and there is regular stock taking done by the top echelons only, no one else. So even for political reasons, if you notice, BL Santosh has been going back and forth, crisscrossing the country, and it's like a report card, you know, just a board exam se pehle padna padta hai. So they are all, you know, there's like marks given to whatever you have done as far as administration is concerned, as far as political acumen is concerned. What have you done? It doesn't mean another thing which I want to bring in is that what Rajdeep said, that just because they were technocrats doesn't make them good ministers. Agreed, but that doesn't mean that you don't have technocrats in your team. The fact is that they bring in expertise, but just because they are technocrats, they can't stay on for 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms in the cabinet. They have to deliver. Even if they deliver a little bit as MOSs, I think they will be doing their job as far as this cabinet expansion is concerned. Another point which I want to make in is, as far as the UPA is concerned, when they were in power, the ministries were little islands in themselves. Here, that has never been the case for the past 7 years. They will always have to report to number 1 and number 2. And I think there is a general understanding that even when the technocrats are brought in, domain specialists are brought in, the caste-specific representation is done, they will have to deliver, because they will be assessed on their delivering skills, on their communication skills, and on their political skills.
Shankar Aiya, who are the ministers in this government who you would be giving high marks to? Who are those that you'd be failing? Who would you like to see being given an upgrade? Who do you think needs to be pulled up for their inability to perform?
Well, Rahul, you know, that will be a long conversation, and I will make one small point. If the 1991 reforms were able to carry it out, it was leadership plus the talent and caliber of the team of ministers and the bureaucrats who were there. If Mr. Vajpayee's government was able to install a low-cost, high-growth economy template, you know, do privatization, introduce welfare schemes, introduce the highways program, it was because of talent in the team. So you have to consider first, the Prime Minister wants a legacy. He wants to present a certain view of what he has done in 10 years when he goes to 2024. And then how does he make it happen? So these are the issues that, I mean, the government's communication, everybody says this government communicates, but the one thing this government has struggled to communicate is exactly what problem is being solved, what is the agenda delivering. So there's much talk about, I don't think we should get stuck about the labels of PhDs and MBAs and technocrats. What is the outcome they are setting? What is the agenda that they are setting, and what is being solved? And I think that this is a good moment for the government to set up something that inspires people. People are not really bothered about Rajnitik and Samajik Samikaran and the stuff that follows. They are more interested whether their village has a community health center, whether they can go to a community kiosk and get their vaccination done, and all that stuff. So if you're solving the problems of people, you are creating goodwill and the power that sustains you.
But the fact also is, Rahul Srivastav, that election-bound states are a key area of focus in this reshuffle. I'm told that every key community of Uttar Pradesh, especially amongst the OBCs, and every key region of the state will be fully represented, so that a message goes out to the people of this important state where polls are due early next year, that the government is serious about ensuring that Uttar Pradesh gets more than its fair share.
Yes, Rahul, exactly. That's the information you broke, that there is going to be a very sizable representation of all crucial vote banks. But I think, Rahul, that's where lies the problem. One, these elections which are there, that the political fixing takes away half the space for any kind of economic or technocratic or other talent deficit which may be there in the government. The government has to fix political equations because there are elections. Also, the fact that Rajdeep said that technocrats can work and be brought in. The problem is that politics in past was not as splintered, though there were coalition governments like Vajpayee. He had Mamata Banerjee, Jayalalitha and others. In states, the BJP was not a large power. That was virtually BJP versus the rest. In that scenario, everybody came along. TDP was there with the government. Today, it is Modi versus virtually the rest. In that scenario, say, for example, Ashok Gulati, a bright mind in agriculture and farming, was part of the farm laws. What has happened eventually, that a good act has eventually faced tremendous political opposition, and the government had to get the bill through the Supreme Court, the act under some kind of suspension. That's where lies the problem, that you may get the best technocrats. There are elections which need a different political fixing. In 2019, before that, Air India disinvest was on course. But Swadeshi Jagran Manch and the public, at that time, the government didn't want to say that we are selling our jewelry. And that's why there is a political compulsion which requires political fixing, which makes other fixing very difficult.
Do you see big changes amongst the big four, or do you think largely, if you go back to what the Prime Minister did as Chief Minister in Gujarat, he likes to keep his main deck the same and likes to tinker at the margins?
Absolutely, and that goes back to 2002 to 2021. If you look at Mr. Modi's tenure, both as Chief Minister and Prime Minister, he likes an element of stability at the very top. What are the changes that have taken place in this period? Most of them have been forced on him. For example, when Manohar Parrikar passed away, that's when you had to bring in a new defense minister. Otherwise, by and large, the big four ministries are generally kept, there's an element of continuity. One change was brought in when Sushma Swaraj fell ill, and then Dr. Jaishankar took over in Modi 2.0 as External Affairs Minister. Mr. Modi, and I said this to you last time also, Rahul, generally believes in the philosophy, if it ain't broke, don't fix it when it comes to ministers. Decision making is where you've generally seen the Prime Minister being much more disruptive. He likes to have a core team around him, and that's nothing wrong with that. That's the way you need to function. An effective team functions when there is an element of continuity. But I think we have now reached a stage, 7-year itch, if you want to call it.
Who's having the itch? You or the PM?
No, I think it's time that the Modi government had the 7-year itch, because I think this is the time when you need to break with the status quo. I think you now need to really focus on fixing the economy. You need to get that health infrastructure to the next level, because that could be a big talking point for the Prime Minister in 2024. After all that we've gone through as a country in the last 18 months, if he can really take the health infrastructure to another level, not just by announcing more All India Institute of Medical Sciences, but looking at public health infrastructure bottom up and putting make your health mission your critical mission, who knows? You might make that your major talking point in 2024. The Prime Minister needs more talking points. I don't think and I don't think those talking points come from, let's accommodate so-and-so in UP because of a caste factor. Let's bring in Narayan Rane.
Too.
I think we have to get out. If any Prime Minister can get out of that mindset, it's Narendra Modi. Why does Narendra Modi, this all-powerful Prime Minister, need to do cabinet reshuffles like in the past. Isko bhi accommodate karo, usko
No,
bhi
because
accommodate
ultimately it's all about politics and elections.
Do you really think...
If he's got Uttar Pradesh elections, ensuring that communities and castes are taken care of is an important message.
I am being contentious and saying that's an old way or old style of doing politics. Ki is caste ko accommodate karna hai, us caste. India has moved on, is my view. India wants good ministers who they can be proud of, not necessarily ki kis caste or kis community se minister aana hai, isko accommodate karna hai, usko accommodate karna hai. Let me give you the example of Narayan Rane, who's a front runner from Maharashtra. He's the same person whom the BJP accused of money laundering a few years ago when he was on the other side. Does Mr. Modi really want to showcase such ministers simply to accommodate someone from Maharashtra? I think the time has come to focus on talent rather than accommodating people.
Okay, so we will
contentious, I know.
We will see what the Prime Minister ultimately does. Rajdeep's dil mange more, that's quite clear. And he's having the 7-year itch. But we'll see the kind of itch the Prime Minister is having as he goes about announcing.
Just one correction.
Yes.
Mr. Parrikar didn't pass away as Defence Minister. I said I think that he resigned to become Chief Minister.
Sure. So this is where we slip into a break. Our entire team of reporters, if you see, we've been breaking virtually every aspect of this story. The exact time of the reshuffle, the fact that this will happen tomorrow, the inside track on the thinking at the highest levels in the government about why this reshuffle is being engineered. And we'll try to be as authoritative as we can, as less speculative as we can, and try and bring you at the same time the import of what is at play, joining the political dots to give you a full sense of the state of play. That is our commitment. We'll be here all the day tomorrow, tracking the story very carefully. We're slipping into a break. When we come back, the Delhi High Court pulls up Twitter, refuses to give the social media giant any protection after Twitter admits it hasn't complied with the new IT rules. More details on the other side. Stay with us. We're back in a minute.